and an open dialogue with the authorities in these different countries.
Now, tell me about Sat Kids. Is this in all of these languages, or is it one language?
No, it's only in Arabic, but there's 100 million Arabic-speaking kids under the age of 15. And they're the group that are the most open to change. This is the hope for the Middle East tomorrow. Yeah. And when you look at some of the stuff that's on these channels, some of the Palestinian channels are really extremely negative. I mean, the highest ideal for a kid is portrayed as the person who straps on the suicide belt and becomes a martyr. And there's a lot of very moderate Middle Eastern Muslim families that don't want their kids exposed to this kind of thing. And when they come across our channel with its positive values and its happy programming and its practical help, you know, about loving and forgiving, especially their siblings, or how to relate respectfully to their parents, they find that this is amazing and unique among the whole range of channels in the Arab world. And they encourage their children to watch it, and they even encourage them to write into us, despite the fact that it's overtly and clearly Christian in content. So,
what impact, if any, is the explosion of internet exposure, especially YouTube, having on your work? And do you see any opportunity for cross-pollination or hybridizing Sat 7 with internet exposure?
Yeah, I mean, in a short answer, yes, we do see, but there are certain factors. The Middle East itself is the most unwired place on the planet. There are a few countries with good internet connections, but only 3% of the Arab world today have high-speed internet to enable them to view video online. And that, out of 350 million, is pretty small numbers. Plus, the internet is censored. If you're in Turkey today, you can't just go to YouTube. It's censored because it carries political messages the government doesn't approve. If you go to the Gulf, there are certain channels, certain websites that are blocked. Whereas satellite television today reaches millions and millions of homes, simultaneously uncensorable. Only the Iranians have tried to block satellite television, with some success, especially during the elections last year. But it's very difficult to jam satellite television without interfering with all the channels on the satellite and then creating an enormous public relations backlash from the owners of the satellite, from the other channels. So it's not done, at least not done for more than a few days at a time. So it is the only unstoppable way that you can deliver the gospel, and it also has a huge reach. I mean, there are at least 250 million people in the Middle East today, including 40 million in Iran, where satellite dishes are illegal, that have satellite television at home. And you compare that to the access to the internet, it's a huge difference. So, but having said that, we do upload a lot of our programming onto YouTube. We do have about 80,000 Facebook followers from the Arab world. And so we're using new media, or social media, as much as we can, recognizing that it will become an increasingly big thing as the Middle East gets wired.
Now, here in Canada and in the States, if you have satellite television, you have to have a satellite television provider, and you have a limited range of satellite channels that they control and that you pay for. This obviously is not the case in the countries to which you're broadcasting. So what do these people do? They go outside with the satellite dish and adjust it to the point where they get your signal, or how does it work?
Yeah, you just shell out about $80 to $100. You get a small dish and a tuner that goes on top of your TV set, and you're all set to go. And you can get 200 different Arabic language television channels, or about 40 different Persian channels, or about 150 different Turkish channels. I mean, it's just amazing. And these are all free to air, we say. Yeah. There's no subscription. There are a few premium subscription channels for sports and that, but even the Arab countries are providing several 24-hour-a-day movie channels, you know, subtitled into Arabic, Western movies of probably less than 2 or 3 years old. So Arabs are spoilt by choice, really.
The overall reaction is not all that hostile?
No. I mean, there was shock when we first started broadcasting. How can how can I see an Arabic-speaking person wearing a cross around their neck speaking about Christ in Arabic? You know, that was so unthinkable back in the middle of the 90s. Now, with Al Jazeera and all these other sort of more radical channels, what we're doing is accepted. You know, there are 15 million Arabic-speaking Christians in the region. Why shouldn't they have a voice? Because I own this satellite receiving equipment. I decide whether to watch it or not to watch it. I have the choice. Not the government, not some cable provider, but me. And that choice is something fairly new in the Middle East, and it's appreciated. And it does mean that people are growingly tolerant of a non-Muslim perspective on religion. Yes, we get our hate mail, we get people very upset with us, but generally, most people are positive. And we even have apologies from Muslims that say, oh, having watched your channel, I realized that all I understood about the Christian faith was wrong. Forgive me. I mean, that's great. Because they've grown up, you know, hearing about the Crusades. They believe that Christians worship 3 gods. They think our book is corrupted. They watch Western films like Dallas and Baywatch that come in to their countries and think these are the way Christians in the West live. And because everyone in the West is Christian, like we think everyone in the Middle East is Muslim, they have these gross misunderstandings of Christianity and the Christian faith.
You know, that's one thing I learned in living in Israel for 7 years, is that in the Middle Eastern context, you're born a Jew, you're born an Arab, you're born a Christian, and you basically have these 3 monotheistic religions, and it all depends on to which family you've been born. And yet, when you dig a little deeper, you discover all kinds of splits and divisions and various spins on faith in these subgroups, and you end up with this huge kind of mosaic, of faith. What percentage of your programming is kind of preaching, or any of it?
Well, we don't carry any Western preachers. That would be a great, easy way to fund the channel. We actually are trying to provide a platform for Middle Eastern Christians. So in terms of didactic, pulpit-type preaching, I suppose about 10% of our content.
And who would do that?
Local pastors.
Local pastors.
Yeah.
So most of your programming relates to kind of Christian lifestyle and moral and ethical issues?
Well, we've got a whole range of music programs. We carry films, we do drama, we've got all the children's programming, of course. We've got documentaries, teaching programs, cartoons for kids. We try to provide really a full television service for different audiences, especially for women and children. And we're certainly not carrying just half-hour preaching program after half-hour preaching program. That model is an economic model that works pretty well overseas, but it doesn't really give much of a voice to the local Christians. And because in the Middle East so many people associate Christianity with the West, we're sort of bending over backwards to show that there are Arab Christians. They've been there since before the time of Islam. It's okay and legitimate to be Arab and to be Christian, because that in one sense will safeguard their future in the Middle East, to be legitimized.
Are you looking at expanding at all? Like you've got a major Muslim audience, potentially Arab audience in West Africa. You've got huge potential in Indonesia.
Absolutely, yeah. The simple answer is we're trying to keep to the focus God gave us, and that is the western half of the 1040 window from Morocco to Afghanistan, where you've got these 3 major language blocks of Arabic, Turkish and Farsi, 500 million people. We think that's quite enough for us. Now, having said that, we are working with people in Indonesia. We're working with people in the Central Asian republics to try and help them use the model we've created, the partnership model, the broadcast ethos and policies, to launch their own similar service and not give in to the old model of selling airtime to whoever can buy their way onto the channel. And, you know, we found a lot of response to that. In fact, I'm working with a partnership in Central Asia now on a service that could launch next year. But we don't want it to come inside the Sat7 umbrella. We just want to help and assist in a catalytic way to get them off the ground as a separate broadcast ministry.
So you have a website. Can people log on and check you out? What is your website?
It's just www.al SAT and the number 7.org.
Sat7.org.
Yeah.
Terence Ascott is the man, and it's a fascinating story, friends. If you want to know more about it, he just gave you the website. Thanks for coming our way.
Thank you.